Hello everyone, and here we have a new story. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics and the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail, broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published once every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. I am 38 years old. I grew up in a full-fledged family. I have an older brother. Now I have a second marriage. I have a daughter from my first marriage. I've been working for 10 years in a well-paid job. I hold the position of chief and I have a free schedule. I lead an active lifestyle. Sports, fishing, hunting, hobbies, friends, and buddies in sufficient numbers. My wife is 30 years old. My wife worked for a long time as an accountant in a large company. Her parents bought her a cottage outside the city. We have been married for 5 years, plus a civil marriage for 2 years. We have a daughter who is 4 years old. Before our marriage, we lived for 2 years in a warm and romantic relationship. We lived in my wife's apartment. My apartment was at the finishing stage. At that time, I was still in my first legal marriage. That's why I registered my apartment with my parents. There was a very unpleasant moment at the beginning of our relationship. I attribute this situation to my wife's insecurity. After the first month of our acquaintance, her ex-boyfriend appeared on the horizon. It happened when I went on a business trip for a week. My wife sent me a message that we can't be together and we need to break up. After I returned from a business trip, we had an appointment. As a result, her ex-boyfriend faded into the background. At that moment, I was very happy about this event. My wife's ex-boyfriend is a couple of years older than her. He drove an old car with no stable income. By that time, I was already in love with my wife. I felt a very strong need for her. In general, I tried to forget this unpleasant situation. Then, we had a period of candy bouquets. I gave my wife expensive gifts, gold jewelry, technology, travel in Europe, and so on. We got married for love, even though my wife got pregnant at that moment. This also played an important role. Therefore, I had to speed up the decision on marriage. I took all the expenses on myself because my wife didn't have any money. It seemed strange to me. After all, she worked for a large firm. But I let go of this situation and didn't attach any importance to it. We had an expensive wedding for 100 people. After the honeymoon, our family life began. In connection with the birth of a child, we are moving to live with me in a new apartment. My family life seems perfect compared to my first marriage. A wonderful wife and daughter. There's always order at home and delicious dinners, no conflicts and always very good sex. 2 months after the wedding, I accidentally found a message in my wife's phone. I received a notification about the need to repay the loan. I scolded my wife a little. Why did she take this money? Now she will have to give much more. As a result, I gave my wife money to close the loan. I immediately forget about it because I'm head over heels in love with her. A year later, I buy my wife a car and myself too. Life flows and soothes with its stability. By mutual decision, I'm starting the construction of a country cottage. The wife has an additional income because the wife rents out her apartment. Every year my wife went away for a month to her parents. Sometimes I went with her. For the last 2 years, I've been very busy building a house and other organizational issues. I'm starting to experience some financial difficulties. 2 years later, my wife goes to work. We are sending the child to school in the city where my mother lived. Our relationship began to change, perhaps because of the absence of a child in the family. Although Skype communication happens every day, the wife is very tired at work. We only have sex on weekends. Time has passed, and I'm still finishing the house. My wife is going on vacation to her parents. 2 days later, my wife calls me and informs me that she and her sister are flying to Greece for 10 days. I didn't like my wife's sister right away. She is divorced and has 2 children. Her sister didn't have a steady man. but she had her own store. She got it from her father. Well, I don't have a choice. I let my wife go because I love her and trust her 100%. I didn't have a single bad thought in my head. After my wife returned from vacation, our relationship is changing for the better. It was like a second honeymoon. Daily sex and daily love messages and calls. We had a lot of fun celebrating my wife's birthday. Before that, we had a second child in our plans. We agreed to start trying in September. At the same time, close friends and parents were aware of our plans. In August, my eldest daughter from my first marriage and I are going on vacation for 10 days to my relatives. My wife also decided not to stay at home and go to her parents. A couple of days later, my wife calls me and says she wants to take our daughter to the ocean. They will go with the same sister and her child. I was furious. But what to do? I'm letting my wife go again. After all, I really love her and trust her. While my wife is near the ocean, I receive daily calls from her. After a couple of days, we stopped communicating altogether. At the end of August, I meet my wife at the airport. The feeling of remoteness from the first seconds. But I think maybe we just got out of the habit of each other. We got home late and were very tired. Of course, there was no sex between us. The next day, my daughter and I go to the zoo. My wife has an indifferent look, rare phrases about nothing. After we got home, we had very sluggish sex. As a result, one fine evening, my wife is sitting and typing text messages on her tablet. I see her smiling and very happy. I was curious. I asked who she corresponded with. My wife replied that it was her sister. I remember this day very well. September 4th, my wife went to bed. Strong doubts arose in my head. I take my wife's tablet and log into social networks. The main page welcomes me and requires me to enter a password and login. I checked her email, everything is clear. But my wife didn't delete the notification from social media. I'm looking through notifications from some guy. I was shocked. I didn't wake my wife. I sat down in the kitchen and poured myself a glass of whiskey. It just didn't fit in my head. Suddenly, my wife wakes up and goes to the toilet. I show her the iPad and ask, "Who is it?" She starts snatching the iPad out of my hands. As a result, my wife lets me go, takes my phone and logs into her account. Of course, she starts deleting all the evidence. In response, I tried to take away my phone and I managed to take a couple of screenshots. In these screenshots, there were a couple of photos of some guy of Asian origin. A conflict is breaking out between us. My wife cries and says that we only kissed. There was nothing else. I only love you, and so on. As it turned out, it was a lifeguard on the beach. His friend met my wife's sister. My wife said they were just spending time together and had only known each other for 3 days. My wife swore on her daughter's health that she didn't have sex with him. He sent the photos to my wife's sister, so he texted her. The next day, we went to the forest for mushrooms. My wife looked guilty. I didn't sleep at night and installed a hidden voice recorder. I find the contact in my wife's mobile phone. The contact name is Work. After a couple of days, I listened to the recording on the recorder. My wife was talking to her sister. Her sister went to these men again. They talked mostly about this Asian guy. I heard a note of regret in my wife's voice. I'm engaged in detail in messages. I was shocked again. My wife corresponded every day. All the same contact called Work. That is, my wife leaves the house and the correspondence begins. This ends after the wife returns home. I'm starting a scandal again. My wife can't stand the pressure and confesses that she had sex a couple of times when she was on vacation. We're starting a showdown. My wife is crying again and asking me for forgiveness. He says again that he loves only me. I was at a loss. I just didn't expect this from her. I trusted her 100%. As a result, she stabbed me in the back. I told my wife I needed to think about it. I took a case of whiskey and drank a lot for 3 days. 3 days later, I cleaned myself up. I thought it over well and informed my wife of my decision. At least I love you. To be more precise, I loved. After all this, I just won't be able to trust you. You understand that a family cannot exist without trust. I'm filing for divorce. My child will not need anything. You disgust me. I can't even look at you. You'll regret it. I won't give you a cent. I will gnaw the earth, but I will not come back to you. At that moment, I turned around and left. Time passed. The divorce took place. I'm living with a new girlfriend. My wife does not give up trying to return our relationship, but I made a promise to myself that I would not return to her again. I helped my daughter pay for her studies. My daughter is very smart and beautiful. By the way, she is already an adult and does not judge me, because my daughter understands everything perfectly. She says her mother cries every day. Of course, I have nothing to say to her because I'm not interested in my ex-wife's life anymore. I told my daughter that I had done everything for our family and ex-wife. My ex-wife chose her own path, but I will never forget my daughter. I want to appeal to the male sex. In no case do you need to forgive cheating on your ladies. If girls choose this path, let them follow it without you. Now let's move on to the advice of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. Before I say a word, I traditionally wish inner strength to the main character. I want to thank him for sharing his story with our community. When I read this story, I wasn't even surprised. Everything is very banal here. I write in almost every video under every story. I ask the whole male sex to understand, what should a man do if a girl has cheated on him at least once? All a man needs is to say goodbye to this girl without any regrets. Because a person's life turns into a living hell. After watching the story, you will be able to see for yourself, but you still make mistakes. I wish happiness to the main character and that he built a new family. Because breaking up with a girl is not the end. This is just the beginning of a new life. This is a chance for a man. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.